Okay, this is Coaching from the Bible, Genesis 14. This chapter is wild. Abraham just won a war to rescue his nephew Lot. He's turning down the riches from a king, and then God shows up with a promise. He says, look at all the stars. That's how many descendants you're going to have. What a promise. Okay, here's the thing. Abraham is old. His wife is old, and they don't have any kids. And so when God says his descendants will be countless as the stars, that's insane. But verse 6 of chapter 14 says, Abraham believed the Lord, and it was counted to him for righteousness. And that's the principle. He didn't see it. He didn't understand it. He trusted it. And that's the thing. I've made a lot of videos talking about how I think we have a lot more faith in things like money and people around us than we do in God. When God makes us a promise that feels really difficult to believe, it might be because of our unbelief that it doesn't happen. When the guy goes to Jesus and he says, will you heal my son? He says, according to your faith, according to your belief. And the guy says, help thou my unbelief. Abram trusted. He says, you're going to have descendants. Doesn't make sense, but he trusted. And that's not easy. When I first started my coaching business, I knew that's what I was supposed to do. But suddenly I started feeling nervous all the time, thinking about, what if I lose this client? What if this dries up? What if all of my clients suddenly leave me all at once? What if this thing collapses underneath me? What I had to learn was the same thing that Abram had to learn. God doesn't make promises just to pull them back. When I do have faith that God will come through, my life tends to flow so much better. My favorite emotion is hopeful curiosity. I'm curious about the future. I'm hopeful about the future. I don't have perfect certainty. I don't know what's going to happen. But hopeful curiosity. I'm curious. I'm curious how God is going to come through. I'm curious how this is all going to turn out. I'm curious what's about to happen. And I think maybe hopeful curiosity is what faith actually feels like in practice. Maybe. Anyway, point being, faith is counted as success. It's not about proving yourself. It's about trusting God even when it seems impossible and even when it seems like his timing is completely wrong according to what you asked. The second thing to learn here is that your job is trust, not control. The more faith that you put into God's promises, the less stress you carry in life, the less you have to control everything. The other thing is delay, waiting, delayed gratification is not about denial or not getting the promises. Even after this promise, Abraham had to wait decades before Isaac was born, but the promise was kept. Okay, so here's the challenge. What promise are you struggling to trust right now? For me, the promise that I struggle to trust is asking you shall receive. I still have so many questions about that. I don't understand. Genesis 14 teaches us that faith itself, believing in God's word, even when it looks insane, that's the best thing that you can do. I don't want to say that that's righteousness because Jesus only condemns those that call themselves righteous, right? None of us are righteous. I just have so many questions. Anyway, takeaway is Abram believed God's promises, and God's promises don't always unfold fast, but they do always unfold. If God told you to do something, he didn't just tell you to do something so that you could go and fail. Anyway, this video was all over the place. I hope it helps. In summary, Abram finishes the war, rescues Lot. The king offers him money. He says, nah, I'm good. Goes to God. He says, God, I want to have kids. God's like, look at the stars. You're going to have so many kids and your descendants are going to be greater than the stars in the sky. And that seems like a crazy promise because he's old and his wife is old. Abram believed. That's what the scriptures say. Abram believed. And if Abram can believe something as crazy as that, then you can believe the promises that God gave you as well. Even if they seem confusing, even if they sound difficult, even if it seems like God isn't coming through when he says, ask and you shall receive, and you ask and then you hear radio silence, nothing's on the other side. Trust anyway. Have faith anyway. Have hope anyway. That's the lesson. Have a great day.